sports magazines, sports cards, comics, and video games. Let's check out the top sales from last month. All right, my friends. So, if you want an in depth look at all of the top 10 sports magazine sales plus some honorable mentions, check out my sports magazine moguls video. But for this one, we are only going to look at the top 5 sales and we're going to look at multiple genres. We're going sports magazines, sports cards, comics, and video games. Last month, I did VHS instead of video games, but like I said, I'm gonna switch it up with that fourth collectible. We will always look at magazines, sports cards, and comics, but we'll do some different things with the fourth one. And this month, we're going to try out video games. So let's jump right in. Let's take a look at some of these top sales from last month, starting with the sports magazines. And we've got number 5. This is Mickey Mantle. This is his very first Sports Illustrated cover from 1956. It's a CGC 6.5. This is a newsstand copy, which means it never had a mailing label on the front. It sold for $3,000 on eBay. So there have only been 54 newsstand copies of Mantle's first cover graded. This is one of 5 6.5s, and there are 26 copies graded higher. Number 4, LeBron James and his very first Sports Illustrated cover from 2002 while he's still in high school. And this is a CGC 9.8, sold for $3,240 on Heritage. There have been 287 copies of this issue graded as a newsstand, and it is one of 44 9.8s. Number 3, this is the very first issue of Sports Illustrated from 1954. It has Hall of Famer Eddie Matthews on the cover for the Braves, and this is a CGC 9.8. So this sold for $3,480 on Heritage, and this issue has been graded more than any other issue ever in Sports Illustrated history. There's never been a first issue that had a mailing label, so every single copy of this issue would be considered a newsstand, which is one of the big reasons why pop counts are so high. And so there have been 637 copies graded, and this is one of 91 9.8s. Number 2, again, LeBron James and his first cover from 2002, but this time it is a CGC 9.6 with a qualified label, and it has been autographed. So the reason that it has been given a green label is because CGC does not authenticate autographs, and they also don't recognize previously authenticated autographs. So basically, they're saying that this magazine is in 9.6 condition, and they're noting that there's some writing on the cover. So even though PSA has already authenticated this autograph to be legitimate, CGC just doesn't get into that ball game. So that's how it's marked, 9.6 qualified. And this sold for $10,200 on Heritage. Now, there was a ticket stub from one of LeBron's high school games included with this sale. So you do have to account for that taking up a little bit of this value. How much of that, I don't know. You can make your guess there. But yeah, once again, 287 graded copies of LeBron James' first cover. And coming in as the top sports magazine sale from last month, we have Hakeem Olajuwon and his very first Sports Illustrated cover from 1986. This is an eye-popping CGC 9.8, sold for $30,000 on a private sale. I was able to confirm this purchase with both the buyer and the seller to confirm that it was legitimate. And this is just this is a crazy copy of a very cool cover here. So Hakeem Olajuwon, Hakeem the Dream, one of the greatest of all time. Definitely top 20, maybe even top 15. And he's actually posterizing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar here on this cover. And there's only been 9 copies graded. Really hard issue to find in newsstand, period. And as a CGC 9.8, it is a pop one of one, none higher. Moving on to comics, let's jump in with the number 5 highest selling comic from last month. And we have 1962 Incredible Hulk issue number 1. This is a CGC 5.5, sold for $33,600 on Heritage Auctions. So this issue has been graded a total of 2,037 times. There are 72 5.5s, and there are 226 copies graded higher. Number 4, it's Amazing Fantasy number 15 from 1962 featuring Spider-Man. This is a CGC 4.5, sold for $43,200 on Heritage. This issue has been graded 3,754 times. There are 177 4.5s, and there are 571 copies graded higher. Number 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, issue number 1 from 1984. This is a CGC 9.6, sold for $44,000 on eBay. There have been 1,972 copies of this issue graded. It is one of 95 9.6s, and there are 45 copies graded higher. Number 2, once again, Amazing Fantasy number 15 from 1962, first appearance of Spider-Man. This is a CGC 5.0, sold for $49,200 on Heritage. Once again, 3,754 total copies graded, and there are only 419 copies graded higher than this 5.0. And the number 1 highest selling comic from last month was 1965 X-Men number 12, Origin of Professor X, first appearance of Juggernaut, and it's a CGC 9.8. This sold for $86,250 on Comic Connect. There have been 3,785 copies graded. It's one of only 2 9.8s, and there are none graded higher. Moving on to video games, our guest for this month, and coming in at number 5, we have 1994 Street Fighter 2. This was from Super Nintendo, and it's graded a 9.8 by VGA. This went for $5,362.74 on eBay, and as of now, VGA has not released a pop report. Number 4, we've got 2000 WCW Backstage Assault Nintendo 64 game. This is graded an 8.5 by Wata Games, and it went for $5,727.25 on eBay. There have been 10 copies of this game graded, and this is a pop 1 of 1 with 2 copies graded higher. Coming in at number 3, it is 1998 Pokemon Red version for Game Boy. Graded a 9.0 by Wata, went for $6,250 on eBay. There have been 174 copies of this graded. It is one of 19 9.0s, and there are 77 copies graded higher. Number 2 for the video games, we have Super Mario Brothers from 1985 for the Nintendo, and this is a Wata 9.4, sold for $13,200 on Heritage. There have been 205 copies graded. This is one of 31 9.4s, and there are 27 copies graded higher. And coming in as the number 1 highest selling video game from last month, we've got Super Mario Brothers 2 from 1988. This is with Nintendo, and it's a CGC 9.6, sold for $20,400 on Heritage. There have been 166 copies graded. There are 20 9.6s, and there are only 4 copies graded higher. And rounding out our genres, we're going to look at sports cards from last month, and number 5 is Michael Jordan's 1986 Fleer rookie card, graded at a PSA 10, sold for $156,000 on Heritage. There have been 22,712 graded copies of MJ's 1986 Fleer card, and this is one of 318 PSA 10s. Number 4, very rare card here. This is 1925 Exhibits. This is Lou Gehrig, considered his rookie card, and this has also been autographed. So this is a PSA 1 with an 8 for the auto, sold for $174,000 on Heritage. There have only been 27 copies of this card graded, and this is one of 5 PSA 1s, and there are 22 copies graded higher. Number 3, another very rare card. This is 1916 M1015 blank backs Babe Ruth. It's an SGC 1.5. You got Babe Ruth there pitching for the Boston Red Sox. Sold for $276,000 on Heritage. There have only been 16 copies of this card graded. It's one of 4 SGC 1.5s, and there are only 9 copies graded higher. Number 2, iconic card here. We've got Mickey Mantle and his 1952 Topps card. This is a PSA 7, sold for $360,000 on Heritage. There have been 1,543 copies of this card graded by PSA. It is one of 77 PSA 7s, and there are 44 copies graded higher. And the number one highest selling sports card from last month, once again, Mickey Mantle's 1952 Topps card. This is an SGC 7.5, sold for $384,000 on Heritage. So there have been another 623 copies of this card graded by SGC, and it's one of 16 7.5s with only 9 copies graded higher by SGC. All right, that's it. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. And until the next video, see you next time.